Welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show. My man Joshua Perry sitting shotgun. We got a huge show for you today. We're going to chance to talk to Jack Sawyer for a couple segments right after this. There's some big news in the House NCAA House case. Players getting paid. There's going to be some settlements and stuff moving forward. How is that going to change the landscape of college football? Talk about how much guys position players will potentially cost. Coming through some transfer portal news. We got questions from you, and we'll talk about some college football national championship odds as we finish up our show with our typical sports betting segment. We're going to start with that NCAA settlement, Josh. I know it's something that you've been diving into and getting into in a big way. It's been approved, I guess, by all of the conferences now. $2.8 billion are going to be going to athletes from 2016 to 2020-ish. I guess up until now, they said, is when it can really happen, with the majority of that going to roughly 6,000-ish football and men's basketball players. So you start talking about 90% of that going there. You're talking on average about $400-some-thousand going to those players. So not a bad chunk of change. Joshua, I asked I forgot I was talking to someone this week about why 2016, and because it kind of seems kind of arbitrary to me. I didn't know if that was when a TV deal was renegotiated or what it was. But the reason that that's the case is they said they filed the lawsuit in 2020. I guess the statute of limitations only goes back 4 years. So that's why. If they would have filed that suit in 2018, Joshua, you would have been locked in on that for a couple of years and been in a good spot. Players are going to get paid, which is good. And I mean, I've got my only payment back here that I ever got. This was my Ed O'Bannon money right there.
There you go.
For about $1,400. I keep it
Love
right
that.
inside my diploma over my shoulder. I didn't sign it and cashed it, but I wanted to make sure I kept the check because that was what I got paid to essentially play college football. So kind of your thoughts on this and where do you think it's ultimately going?
Yeah, well, first off, it's a damn shame about that statute of limitations. My last year was 2015, so your boy is not getting a check out of this. And there are going to be a lot of former players that feel much like myself, where it's like, dang, that's crazy, because you're essentially acknowledging that preventing us from making money was illegal. It was illegal, against the law, but we get no restitution for it. Neither here nor there. I think this is phenomenal for some former players who are a part of this. I think it is good to establish now more of a framework moving forward for what a revenue share would look like, and potentially what the NIL structures are going to look like. And we can talk about some of the the repercussions for collectives and things of that nature. I think there's good establishment there. There is a big question for me from the administrative side and from the athletic department side, how all of this is going to impact the way that they function. And this is all brand new, and they're adjusting to it and learning about it the same way that we are. But, for an athletic department like Ohio State that sponsors a lot of sports, what type of impact can this have because of, budget concerns for smaller schools who are a part of this? And they felt like they had to pay an incongruent amount into this fund here. You mentioned about 90% of the money going to 6,000, Power 5 football and basketball players. Well, 27 small conferences out there are like, why the hell are we paying so much money if it's not even going to, the players that played for our school? So certainly a lot of questions. I'm here for it, though. Establish a good framework and get some guys some money in their pocket that probably should have had it before anyway.
Yeah, the one thing, the smaller school stuff is interesting. I've talked about this, and I used to talk to Gene about it a lot. And the problem with the NCAA is you're trying to govern so many different entities the same way, and they're not all aligned with what their goals and expectations are. So the smaller schools, and this is people are like, they shouldn't have to pay it all. I'm like, well, the reason why they're in this situation is Gene Smith back in like 2018, 2019, he was trying to push to this model, and a lot of bigger programs were, and it was some of the smaller conferences that didn't want it. They wanted to stay how it was. They didn't want to bifurcate it. So I said, okay, now you've got to pay for your inability to kind of change and move along. And maybe that means there would have been like a split in Division One FBS, which to me, I think is fine.
It's a great thing.
Yeah.
I think if it splits, and I've said this, not only from a financial standpoint, do I think it's a good thing, but I think we also lie to kids when we say that Akron starts the season saying that they're competing for the same thing Ohio State is. Akron doesn't have a shot to win a title, but if you now separate these things out, you could have a couple of championships in a way that makes some sense. And also you can have people competing on a level financial playing field, which I think we all want to.
And I go, I don't know why. He's like, well, that'll be different then. I'm like, well, those schools can still play in the non-conference. Like,
Sure.
it's completely all right. Like, you can still have the same non-conference schedule, and you can still have Miami, Ohio can play Ohio State, and Western Michigan can play Michigan still. Like, those things can still happen. And then at the end of the year, they're getting to play for something of consequence that, like you said, is a level playing field that they have the ability to win at this point. So I, I think it would work better for everybody. Um,
And can I real quick?
yeah,
I
go
would
for
make
it.
the argument that in the new CFP era that we're getting ready to enter into, the only thing that really matters is your conference record, right?
Yeah.
And so if we were to split this thing out into a couple of subdivisions anyway, the only thing that would matter would be your conference record. So to your point, you can still have the non-con, and these teams can still be whole as they start their conference seasons and compete for a championship in their own subdivision.
And then I guess part of this moving forward then is what does this look like? We talked about the back, but moving forward, maybe there's a split, maybe that happens. But I had been told the reason why the NCAA wanted to try to settle this outside of the fact they were worried of losing is their plan was to then go to Congress and try to say, look, we made restitution, we did right, give us some ability to restrict and put guardrails on NIL and transfer portal, which I do think there needs to be some guardrails, like the limitless transfers without consequence. Like I was talking to a friend of mine who coaches, high school basketball. He's like, what are we teaching kids in that? And I completely agree with him. I think one time free transfer, great. Outside of that, like you need to learn to make decisions and stick with them.
I'm here for it. Like we have overcorrected. And to your point, part of it is because of the litigation that we've seen. Like there had to be corrections that were made. But I think the idea that we've not had a national framework, and people were calling for this in the very beginning. They said we need a national framework for name, image, and likeness because we saw all of the dominoes state by state. People made their own rules, and the NCAA tried to enforce some of their rules, which now they are rendered essentially powerless without like actual laws. It's crazy, but I hope we do get to a point where we can actually structure the sport because I think players, coaches, administrators will be able to operate much better in that. And also, if you're a fan, you're going to feel better about what's going on too.
Absolutely. Well, we got one guy who's going to be in the middle of it right now. He's coming up next. Defensive end, Pickerington North's own Ohio State Buckeye, Jack Sawyer, joining the program next. All right, welcome back into the program. And now we are pleased to welcome in our guy, Jack Sawyer, Pickerington's own senior defensive end. Jack, thanks for taking some time with us on this wonderful Memorial Day week.
Of course, guys. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Hey, man, so just really excited. I want to have a casual conversation with you. Got a chance to know you over the last 3 to 4 years. And, it's always unique when you're from the state of Ohio playing at Ohio State. And then, like, the second piece of that is I always say it's even more unique when you're from Central Ohio. You grew up in Pickerington, you came in at a weird time, like you didn't play your senior year, the COVID stuff. It was just a wild situation. Can you rewind, like, back in time and to what all that was like and just kind of, I mean, you didn't know any different, but kind of how unique that process was for you?
Yeah, it was something none of us have ever experienced, and it was a unique time for I think the whole world, and coming into college during that it was definitely different, definitely a different experience than what it is now. When post COVID situation, so leading up to it was different. Some guys were having seasons, some weren't. Then you get here and, your practice could get canceled, at midnight when you're supposed to wake up at 5 for the next day for a workout. We loved those texts back then, but it was different. You never knew what was going to happen. The workouts were different. You were spaced out, couldn't really be too close to each other. Had to wear a little turtleneck thing to keep it over your mouth. So it was definitely a weird experience, I think, for all of us. And I'm glad that we finally have been able to overcome that.
Do you think that like kind of brought your class together a little bit? The fact that you guys all came in and it was just such a weird time for everybody, and like it wasn't a traditional start to like a career, and you guys all kind of came in a little bit segmented and different than maybe it normally would have been.
Yeah, I think it did. I think that the way it was, I think it definitely made our class closer because it gave us an opportunity to work out just as our class a lot and hang out just as our class a lot. And I think you can ask anybody like Travion and Ty Leak and all the other guys in my class, how close we were already coming in. But then after that, man, we really all got to know each other just hanging out and being around each other so much as a group. It just made our bond and our friendships that much closer from the get-go.
All right, Bob mentioned it. You're a Central Ohio guy. We both grew up in Central Ohio. There's a certain pride that comes with putting on scarlet and gray. Can you describe that for everybody? And then take it a step forward. Ohio State recruits nationally. You're bringing in guys from everywhere. Like, how do you convey to them what exactly it means to be a Buckeye?
Yeah, Josh, you said it. Like, you just have that much more pride, when it comes to coming from Pickerington and growing up, 15 minutes from the Woody. It means that much more to me. I remember watching you guys, on Saturdays growing up and wanting to always be a part of that. The tradition, the legacy you guys left, especially for me, coming so close from home for me. There's just that much, it's hard to explain to guys, that come from out of state or come from Florida or Texas. And I think that the guys on our team, man, they really get it. But I think for us, we just naturally have that much care factor when it comes to that stuff that you can't really explain. Because when showing up at the shoe on Saturdays for me, it's I'm living a dream, really. I'm blessed to be here. I see so many people that I know growing up and knowing how much people care around Central Ohio just growing up. I'm sure you guys are both used to it. It's the talk of the town. What are the Buckeyes going to do this weekend? And I know for me, I take that much more pride in it, and that's why I chose to come back. I wouldn't have felt right leaving, not having accomplished any of those goals. Being from Columbus, loving the Buckeyes through and through since I was a little kid. I wanted to leave a legacy like you guys did, and go out as champions. And I think that's our main goal coming back and bringing a national championship and bringing the gold pants back to Columbus.
So it's a good point you bring up, with the connectivity there. You're from Pickerington. We got, other guys on defensive line from Pickerington. You mentioned Ty Leak. You talked JT. Like, what's that defensive line relationship like? Because you guys have 4 guys up there now that have played a lot of football. You've got a good group of young dudes behind you. Like, what's that dynamic like in the room? And I think everybody always wants to know, like, you and JT coming in were like, 1 and 2 defensive ends in the country. What's that relationship been like with you guys as well?
It's been great. You can talk to Coach Mick. He likes to joke around and say we're a little too close at times. Goofing around. We're all we're all close. We all get along so well that we like to mess around and joke around. But we get serious when it's time to, and we all know what's at stake this season, and we all know why we came back. You hit on Ty Hamilton being from Central Ohio too, so he gets it. Josh, did you play with Devon?
I don't think we played, but I got to know him a little bit.
Yeah, so having his older brother, been in the program and been able to be successful. I think he might have he might have been on the national championship team, or maybe a couple years after.
I think he missed that by a year or 2. I think he missed Joshua by just a year. I think he came in maybe 16.
I think so.
Okay, yeah. But anyway, he was undefeated against the team up north, and that's something that is on the back of our minds every day, is beating those guys and bringing a championship back, Big Ten championship back here, and winning the national title. And I think that how close we all are, it's easy for us to make a plan, and we know what we're going for this year, and it's do or die now. And so how close we are in the bonds we have with each other, it allows us to push each other that much more in the weight room and off the field, making sure we're all doing the right stuff. So I think that how close we are as a D-line unit, it's gonna carry over on the field this fall.
So, have we tried workshopping any names? Like, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, can we call them like the D ties inside? Like, is that something that we can get done, you think?
We might be able to. We got a lot of ties on the team. Ty Leak, Ty Hamilton.
Yeah, the D ties, man.
Yeah, I know. We might need to do that. We might need to trademark that. They might have something going there.
All right, Jack. So I've asked this question to other guys we've had on here. I feel like as you get older, your role within the locker room, your role within the team evolves. How have you seen your role personally evolve within this team?
Yeah, I think that I think that's a big thing. You know, we're coming into our senior year. You know, we've been in the program now for 3 years, going on 4. You know, I think it's just that, you know, now we're the old guys, and, you know, we got to carry the water, and we got to be the leaders in the locker room. We got to set that standard. You know, we got to make sure that we leave the program better than we got here. And I think that, you know, when we were all talking about coming back, you know, I remember talking to Trey and Emeka about how our leadership, you know, has got to be to a different level. You know, we got to hold everybody to that standard. We can't let anything slide, because we know how important everything, all the little things matter to winning, because we've been here for so long now. And I think that, you know, when we talk about leadership, that we got probably the best group of guys that I've been around since we've been here. And you see guys stepping into that mold now. You know, you see Trey and Emeka, Denzel's being more vocal with guys. Just everybody across the board is stepping up and filling that role that we all should be now going on our senior year.
Absolutely. And what's interesting, you talk about the culture. We talked to Lathan about this. We talked to Cody, and you know just how collectively close, especially on the defensive side. You start
Yeah.
bringing in transfers. You bring in IGB last year, like dude's an absolute dog. You bring in Caleb Downs this year, on the defensive side. What has that been like when you're bringing guys in? Because it's something that never really happened to the degree that it's happening now.
Yeah.
Jack, like how do you integrate those guys in, and like how do they mesh and fit in so quickly?
Yeah, I think it's just, you know, the character on our team is really high. And, you know, when guys come in, they sign that, you know, the dotted line to be a Buckeye. You know, we embrace them with open arms right away, you know, make them feel at home. And, you know, you mentioned a couple guys who are, you know, are good players. You know, Caleb Downs, one of the best safeties in America as a true freshman. IGB, you know, came in right away and was one of the best corners we've had. So, you know, when you think about those guys, you think about really anybody who transfers in. You know, we accept them with open arms, and, you know, we try to teach them what the culture is, you know, what our motto is. And, you know, they adapt pretty well. And I think they've done a good job of accepting that and fitting in with us really well. And, I give the guys on the team a lot of credit, and I give the coaching staff a lot of credit too, with being able to mesh those guys in pretty well. And they all seem to, you know, to get it right away and buy in. And I think that's the biggest thing is the buy-in factor. You know, everyone's got to be on the same page. You know, we're going one direction, all of us. And, you know, I think they've done a phenomenal job with that. And, you know, I mean, those guys are, you know, great players, and they're going to make our team that much better. So I'm really excited to see what they do for us too.
Absolutely. Well, Jack, we appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break here. We got a little more with Jack, get some personal stuff, talk about his experiences in Columbus, maybe relationships with other teammates, Larry Johnson, Ryan Day, all the great things. We'll get into that next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, more with Jack Sawyer here, coming straight at you. Talked a lot about Jack's time at Ohio State, what it's like being a Central Ohio guy, some of the transfers. Jack, we're gonna get a little more personal now. I mean, you're a Central Ohio guy. I mean, do you have any what's your go-to eating spots around Columbus? I mean, you're kind of unique because you grew up here. I know
Yeah.
Pickerington's not exactly downtown Columbus, but like, where do we like to go and eat? You guys always got a little coin in your pocket now, so I know you can experience some of the best places in Columbus.
Yeah, I mean, I like a lot of places. You know, I'm a big pizza guy. I love Tommy's Pizza. I don't know if have you guys ever had Emilio's on the west side of Columbus?
Yeah.
One of my
I've
favorite
not.
pizza spots. Have you, Josh? You ever had that?
No, I gotta go. I'm in Columbus this weekend. I gotta go check it out.
Yeah, you got to check that one out. That's by far probably my favorite pizza spot in Columbus is Emilio's. So, you know, there's a bunch of different spots. A lot of good. I think Columbus has got a lot of good pizza spots. I don't think Columbus gets as much credit as we deserve when it comes to the type of pizza we have.
What does Cody say about that? Because I have to listen to Cody Simon, that is, who's a New York, Jersey guy, trash Columbus pizza all the time.
Yeah, you know those guys always do it too. I was good buddies with Whippler. They always give us shit about not having as good as pizza, but man, I've been to all those cities, and I've been to Chicago and had their pizza, which is good. I'm not cutting on their pizza, but I think it's hard to beat a Tommy's Pizza, or it's hard to beat an Emilio's Pizza for me.
I'm gonna say this right now. I live in Chicago at the moment. Most overrated pizza city in the country. These people don't know what they're talking. Deep dish is not like that. They've got this tavern style. It's not like that. I'll take a Donato's pizza any day over anything in the city of Chicago, just so I can put that out into the universe, Jack. So yes, I'm with you. Columbus has the food, and it doesn't get enough credit. I wanted to ask you about this, and it's one of the fun things about summer. You got free time. You're not worried about practice, being at the Woody all day, and then going to class and having to come back and get treatment. You get to enjoy yourself a little bit. So when you find yourself with a little bit more free time, maybe a free evening or a free weekend, what's your favorite activity?
Man, I'd say that what we've been having a lot of fun with on the team, with a lot of guys we do, is we golf. I don't know if you guys used to do that back in the day, but we've all been golfing. We got some good golfers on the team too. Mecca, Denzel, JT's golfing now too. A bunch of the guys are really good golfers. So I think collectively as a team, that's what we've all been starting to do. You know what I mean? Get done with the summer workout on a Friday. Hey man, we got a tee time. Let's make a tee time for one. Let's go to Scarlet. Let's go to New Albany Links. Let's go somewhere. Let's get a tee time, all like 8 of us. Let's go play. It's kind of because it's kind of feeding us that competitive nature while we're also having a good time out in the sun. So I think that's probably one of my favorite things to do when we got some free time.
See, that's
You
what's
know, these guys got a little money in their pocket, right? Like
yeah.
when we were in college, it's not as easy when you don't have the funds. It's a classy sport there. We had a few guys that played. It was definitely big when I was in the league. Bobby, I know guys all the time in the league that all they want to do is golf during OTAs.
Did you guys golf at all when you guys were at Ohio State?
No, man. Jack, I'm gonna be honest. Like I was hanging with like Schlegs and AJ, Nate Sally, Brandon Mitchell. Like we were all kind of too lazy to go golf, to tell you the truth. We just sit around and would watch TV. And I mean, to tell you the truth, Schlegs would drive all the way out to St. Albans, which was like east of Newark. And he would drive there because I think they'd let him play for free / pretty cheap. And he would go out there and he would golf like Fridays and stuff during the season before we had workouts and everything. And I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, I didn't enjoy golf enough. I didn't want to spend the money to be able to do it. Dude, honestly, in college, I didn't even have really a set of clubs. I couldn't afford a set of clubs to buy. You guys, and this is high society living now. So it's a different.
Bobby, don't act like
game.
you didn't have clubs in high school growing up. I know you had a set of clubs.
Coach, listen, man. I never golfed growing up. Like we didn't have that wasn't what we did. So
Josh,
now.
Josh, are you from New Albany or Olentangy? Which one do you
I'm
go to?
I'm an Olentangy guy. You know we golf up here. You know we golf.
I was gonna say, see, Josh can't play that card. I know he had some coin to go play some golf.
We golf up here for sure. I had some clubs. I never got lessons. I meant to when I was in college. My dad was like, "Go get lessons. Go get lessons." He loves golfing, and I never did. So I'm still bad. But we used to go over to Safari over there by the zoo. That's where
one of my
me and
favorite
Craig
courses.
used to go. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite courses. That's an awesome course.
That's remarkable, man. That's good stuff. So you guys golf a lot. I mean, so it's funny you mentioned Emeka and like how much transition, Jack, like hanging out with dudes on each side of the ball. Like you talked about Trey, Emeka, not that it was like always defense and offense and things, but just guys you're around with, you're generally closer to. Like, what's that interaction like? And so you guys all golf together, hang out, you guys watch shows together. Like, what all else are we doing?
Yeah, I think a lot of times too, you hit on, I think you're naturally going to be more closer to the guys you spend the most time with, which is the D line. And, us as a D line, we'll do different stuff. We'll go bowling or we'll go to JT's place or someone else's place, and, watch a college basketball game or watch an NBA playoff game and just doing stuff like that. I think the closer you guys get with each other off the field on a team, the better you're going to be on the field, I think. And I think that shows. And, we do a bunch of stuff like that. Cookouts. We've been cooking out a lot, some burgers and some brats, little get-togethers here and there. So, I mean, I think Coach Mick and Coach Day were telling us that I think we spend more time with each other off the field than, previous teams that they've had for a while.
Now you mentioned, golfing. You said you kind of get that competition in there. Bowling can be competitive. I know when we used to get together outside the Woody, sometimes things might get a little over the top in terms of the competition. You guys, guys able to kind of regulate yourselves, or is it kind of a free for all when you get together?
Man, it gets sometimes. We gotta kind of tell dudes, hey man, let's chill out a little bit. We're on the golf course in New Albany, and we can't be acting like this. We used to play pickup basketball a lot, but that got we don't play any pickup anymore. But those games used to get heated because we had a bunch of guys who could hoop on the team. I remember, DeJuan Jones would always be in there, calling for fouls and this and that. Everyone getting heated with each other. Someone gets checked a little too hard driving to the lane, and a ball comes flying back right at their head. It's fun, and then but we're so close too that we can laugh about it after. One time it's funny. Me and Emeka used to always golf last summer with Kyle and Julian Fleming, and I was really close with Julian. And Julian and Emeka would just go at each other the whole time on the golf course. And Emeka likes to take extra shots and act like he didn't take them.
Oh,
and say he shot a 78 when he might have shot an 82. Emeka, if you see this, man, that's a fact. He'll start laughing. And Julian, we'd get to the clubhouse, and he'd be like, "Yeah, I shot like a 78," which actually Emeka is by far, I think, the best golfer I've played with on the team. So give him his flowers. But we get back to the clubhouse, and he'd be like, "Man, I shot a 78 today." And Julian would be like, "Man, no, you didn't." And then they'd start jawing at each other in the parking lot. It'd be a big deal, but it was all fun. We'd all laugh about it afterwards.
that's tremendous. All right, final question. You mentioned stuff getting heated, guys getting juiced, the workouts and everything there. You're gonna do something cool. June 21st, over at St. John Arena. They made that into a weight room now, so they're gonna have a whole team workout. I think it's at 5:00, 5:30. It's gonna start. Interaction with the players and everything, and you can go to 1870 Society.
You're the MC, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm MC it. So you go to 1870 Society to sign up for it and go. So listen, if you have kids that want to watch, you want to know what it's like to play college football, this is the place to go see it. You'll see this competitive environment. Talk about getting heated. What are those workouts like? And then what's it been like having our guy Schlegs in there, guy who I played with, who coached JP, and what's he been adding in these workouts?
Yeah, I mean, these workouts have been intense. Everything's winner loser. Everything's competition. Everything's, Coach Mick calls it dirty hard work. You're getting after it, and everything we do, it's a competition. Schlegs is always in there with the juice. He rolls in about 4:40 in the morning, gets a lift. He's driving an hour back home, and he said he leaves his house like 3 in the morning to come here.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He's always got an energy drink or a coffee with him, bringing the juice no matter what. So it's fun having Schlegs there, man. He brings a different type of energy, and I can tell that, he really cares and loves Ohio State football. So having him there definitely amplifies, the workouts and what we're doing each day.
All right. Well, Jack, we appreciate you spending some time with us. I know, man, taking some time this weekend, great Memorial Day weekend. Enjoy it. Enjoy your family, and make sure you're getting back to work, because up next, dude, we're going to dive into some of the stuff that's going on in college football, all these different rules, and I guess settlements now with the NCAA and what that's going to lead to. So Joshua and I'll break that all down here next on the Bobby Carpenter Show. Welcome back into the show. How great is Jack Sawyer? One of the best. And it's funny, Josh, we got 3 guys up here, all played at Ohio State. Or one is playing at Ohio State, all 3 of us going to different Central Ohio schools. So kind of a unique little situation to have that commonality, those conversations, and what that's ultimately like, because there's always a different level of stress and pride, maybe affiliation, when you come from that close to play here. I think, what did Mick call it? Central Ohio disease? Is that what? Is that the term
he called it the 270 outer belt. And if you were inside the belt, it was cool. If you were outside the belt, which I was far outside the belt, that's where he started asking the questions about guys.
Yeah, maybe question you a little soft or whatever it is. I mean, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you know what? It's just, we're asking questions. You got to deliver the answers.
Absolutely.
So it's all there. And I got to add in, I mean, I was remiss at the top of the show. It's Memorial Day week. Super excited for that. Want to make sure we commemorate, do it responsibly, do it respectfully. Thank any family, any Gold Star families, make sure you're thanking them. And then obviously, if you know people that served, it's not Veterans Day, but it's the closest thing you can get. So thank those folks for providing us with the unbelievable freedoms that we can sit here and talk about transfer portals. We can talk about Ohio State football and all the great freedoms that we have in this world. The freedom to transfer, Joshua, is a big piece of it. We talked about the NIL settlements, money being kind of doled out. Now they'll be able to bring that in-house on a collective basis. So they talk about that $20 million number. And we'll get into that in the coming weeks, like how that's going to be parceled out and how that'll be doled out between sports, between men and women's athletes, the interpretations on Title IX. There's a bunch of it. But with that, CBS released a report on the going rate for different positions through the portal for power four, or like power four starters. Talk about quarterbacks, 500,000 to 800,000, some getting over 2 million. Running backs, 2 to 300,000. Wide receivers, 75 to 300. O line, 350 to 500 on the offensive side of the ball. Do any of those numbers surprise you, or do you think too high, too low, or just too much?
I mean, I think it's all crazy. If I'm being completely honest, like just knowing that, like what these cats are making right now is ridiculous. But I'm not necessarily shocked at these numbers. It's interesting to see like a starting running back, like the starting value for that is higher than a wide receiver because that's different than what we would see in the NFL, right? And so I think you can draw a direct correlation. Michigan fans will tell you how they felt about Blake Corum. I know how I felt about Ezekiel Elliott. You certainly want to make sure you have one of those type of guys on your roster. The offensive line one is the one though, because that directly tells me the lack of quality offensive linemen in college football. And it's a hard position to recruit and it's difficult to develop. But these transfers are super valuable, whether they're great players or not, because there's not a ton of great ones anyway.
Well, you need 5 offensive linemen to start, number 1. And to your point, Joshua, it's the longest developmental position you have. Like, you can go get, obviously, JJ Smith isn't, falling from trees everywhere.
Right.
Like, you can have an impactful freshman come in at running back or receiver. It's really hard to be a starting caliber, national championship caliber offensive lineman at a place like Ohio State or Bama or Georgia. Like, you're talking about dudes like Orlando Pace, Nick Mangold
Sure.
started kind of the end of our freshman year. Dudes that are like Hall of Famers or first round draft picks. Like, that's what those guys ultimately usually become. So it's very, very difficult. Defensive side, D lineman 250 to 600. You've got 100 to 300 for LBs, and DBs only 100 to 225. And so you look at the lineman being the highest on offense, kind of surprising. D line is kind of the flip side of that, Joshua, on the defensive side.
Yeah, I mean, there's a premium on guys who can hit quarterbacks, right? And so I understand that. I was actually shocked that the DB value
Yeah.
was so low there because, I mean, you're telling me that you can get a guy, and we've got one in Iggy who came in through the portal. And like, is he the best lockdown corner I've ever seen? Absolutely not. Do I want that guy on my team because he plays with grit? He likes to hit people 100%. Right. And so like I think there's a value to having a really strong back end, but in particular, if there is a guy out there who you feel like can match up one-on-one with some of these really good receivers, that I know this is for like an average starter, but 225 seems a little bit light to me.
Yeah, it's kind of wild to think that with the defensive backs, because in the NFL, like a lot of this is correlating to NFL numbers, except the wide receivers a little off, maybe DBs are a little off. You mentioned strong back end, cool. I call that the Diddy rule. You want to make sure you're ready to go, and then the D line right there. I love that because that position impacts everything. If you have a good defensive line, you can have average linebackers and average secondary and be fine
Yeah.
because you're going to get pressure. You're going to be able to stop the run. You're going to be able to do a lot of other things. And if you only have 3 seconds or less to throw the ball, like your DBs are going to be a lot better anyway. So that makes a lot of sense. Um, it's just wild to kind of see those numbers. And we're going to see how this is all going to change because come 2025, with that the House ruling or settlement, it's going to be in-house now. I think there'll probably be more transparency with it. They'll get back to kind of what NIL was truly created for. So the collectives will probably start to disappear to a certain degree. And it will look a little bit more natural. Coming up, though, we'll dive into a little bit more of that. We got some tailgate talk. We get to answer all of your questions. We'll fire those away here coming up next on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, welcome into the show, a favorite segment that we get to do each and every week. It's our tailgate talk, and where we get to answer your questions, whether you're dropping them into the mentions on Twitter, or you're throwing some comments in underneath on the show on YouTube. And thank you for watching there. Please like, subscribe, comment on it. We love to hear them. We love to get back to you. And one of the big questions here in the offseason, people always ask, Joshua, who is going to be your breakout star for this 2024 edition of the Ohio State Buckeyes?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like there's momentum for somebody in that linebacker room. Whether it's Cody Simon, who's been there for a while, and
Yeah.
we both have talked about how smart he is. I think this could be a big year for him. Whether it's Sonny Styles or CJ Hicks, I think one of those guys will be a star, and I think one of them has to emerge to really have that top ranked defense that we think Ohio State can have. On the offensive side, trying to I feel like there's a wide receiver that's
No, you can't.
not
JJ Smith,
JJ,
he's off the
that's
board.
not
I
that's
forgot.
not
What
a
they,
Mecca. No,
yeah,
that's what I'm saying. I feel
yeah.
like there's got to be another one of those guys, right? And like Brandon Ennis, there's been the conversations, Carnell Tate, like how do we feel about one of those guys really emerging there? But I think that's going to be important because as many weapons as you can have for whoever's playing quarterback for Ohio State is going to be valuable.
I think you're correct in that. For me, I'm going to go on the defensive side. I know we had Jack Sawyer on, and so many guys look at, Jack Sawyer and JT Tumaloa and how good those guys are. And I think both those guys are going to have really stellar years this year. But there's a guy that was a top 50 dude coming out. He has all the measurables that you're looking for. It's now going to be his third year in the program, and they're going to rotate these guys heavily. And you got to remember, D line, there's a ton of games to be played, there's a ton of reps to be had, and you're going to make sure they stay fresh. I'm going to go with, I like both of these young guys actually, and they've made a lot of plays. Caden Curry's made a ton of plays in the
Yeah.
spring and camp every year. I think he'll continue to make more. And then opposite of him, Kenyatta Jackson has like all the physical tools. When you build a defensive end in a video game, you're like 6'4" to 6'6", long arms, flexible, can bend, came in a little thinner. Now he's probably like 255, got it all. And like I'm hoping that like Jack and JT, these guys, Tyleek, like the D ties, if you will, those dudes can lean on these young guys and get them to develop that dog where like when you're out there, you may only get 30 plays. Go try to get a couple sacks. Like go try to make impact plays.
Kenyatta's a really good one. I mean, you've seen it more than I have because you get to watch practice at the Woody, but like even watching game tape, dude flashes
Yeah.
often, right? Like, and it's the physical traits. It's what like he just needs a consistency to his game, and I think part of building consistency, and this is speaking from personal experience, is building confidence that
Yeah.
you can actually do it, right? Like you can go out there and dominate a game. And I think one of the interesting things watching a guy like him is early on this season, one of those games where he's going to have more reps available to him. Maybe the competition's not quite up to snuff. Like he could go out there, have a couple really big plays, and then all of a sudden he's like, I can really do this thing the way that everybody else believes I can do this thing.
And that's the part. Like once you get a couple, all of a sudden you believe, like you start going against guys. And one of the things Bill Parcells would always say this, and Fick would actually too. He's like, you can't just put your toe in the water. You got to jump in.
Yep.
And once you realize like you just go really hard, you don't feel the guys out anymore and like force them to block you, force them to stop you. All of a sudden, then that paradigm begins to shift and you become a guy that, I mean, honestly, like I think he has as much ability, if not more, than anybody in that room. And so you begin to have some of that success. All of a sudden, they start building out packages, and I think they probably want to because Jack and JT are bigger bodies. And I'm like, listen,
Yep.
man, find ways to get those guys inside, get a matchup on
Dude.
some guards. They have a lot of really good DNs. Do the Larry had the Rushman package. You were here when you had some of those really talented D line groups. Like get all those dudes on the field for 7, 8 plays a game on third and long. It's going to be hard to stop. They can move around. I know they're trying to work in some stuff like that. Jim Knowles is creative. I'm really excited for that. I think Kenyatta is going to be a guy that really breaks out there on that defensive side. So hopefully he develops that confidence, like you said, and that consistency to begin to move forward. All right, coming up, we're going to wrap the show. We got our betting segment brought to you by Tipico Sportsbook. Talk about some of these college football national championship odds and what they look like next. The Bobby Carpenter Show. Welcome into the final segment of the program. It's our favorite segment till we get to dive into some odds here. And it's brought to you by Tipico Sportsbook. They're going to change the way you bet with their new Tipico Rewards program. The more you bet, the more you earn, the more you win. Get up to 5% cash back on all your bets. Be sure to check out the Big Play Boosts as well, giving you the best odds on all Ohio sports. And don't forget to follow along with your favorite big play personalities such as me and Joshua on social media, locking your bets with us all weekend long. Must be 21 years older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. So let's look ahead, Joshua, to some of these college football futures. And it's interesting. Ohio State and Georgia on Tipico, clearly the two favorites. And you're sitting there and they're, plus 325, plus 350, and that's kind of where they're at everywhere. Then you've got a little bit of a drop with Texas, and they've been coming in most places similar to Tipico, all around plus 700, plus 750, maybe a plus 800. You've got Oregon right there, plus 8 or plus 9. And then it kind of drops to LSU or Ole Miss, like Alabama. Like there's this drop, but it's really kind of two, and then everybody else. Does that sound right when you look at it?
Yes. I think that as I start to look at it, Georgia is, it feels like the team, right? They've got the quarterback coming back. They're extremely talented. I think they're going to be very good defensively. But then you have Ohio State right there. And what OSU's done in the portal, we've obviously talked about. And the idea is maybe there are a few more questions, but it could be the most talented roster in college football. So you put them right there. Then you start to look at Oregon. It's like, okay, well, Oregon's got a pretty daggone talented roster too, and they got the veteran transfer quarterback, and they got, wide receiver out of the portal, and think the defense is going to come along. It's like the SEC school that's not in the SEC. People love them. And then you've got Texas, and Texas last year proved to us that they're probably ready to compete, and Quinn Ewers is back. And I think they lost a bit at wide receiver, obviously. And I don't know if their secondary got much better either. So I do have questions about them, but they're talented and they prove something to us. And then after that, it's kind of, well, take your pick. Like, who do you like? Like you think Ole Miss is a team that could make some noise? Do you think LSU is a team that got better this offseason? Like there are some questions after those 4 teams.
Yeah, I think Texas lost, A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, both receivers that went in like the top 40 of the draft. And the problem was
Jatavian Sanders at tight end too.
Yeah. And last year they were really talented up front. They lost a lot of their D line, which covered up maybe some of their defensive back issues which were then exposed against Washington, who could block them up a little bit better. So some issues there. The thing with Ohio State, I'm kicking myself in the butt right now because you could have gotten them like after the season, Joshua, at like I saw them at 700, 750, and the odds have basically been halved now. Like everybody looked. You got the coach, you've got a quarterback, you got Caleb Downs coming in. Like JJ Smith looks good. I mean, there's so much to love about him. And so that's what's killing me is because so much of this is just consumer sentiment. And
yes,
like after that Missouri game, I mean, everybody was off the boat, dude. There was plenty of room on there, and I didn't jump in on it, and I wish I would have.
This is like what you said last segment, Bobby. You can't dip your toe in. You got to dive in, right? And you didn't.
And I didn't do it. And, it was the new playoff system and everything. It's easier to get in, but I think it's ultimately harder to win because instead of just winning 2, you may have to win 3 or 4 games. And because, in football, one-off situation, some of these games might be outside. There's weather issues. Who knows what all could potentially happen. So, and injuries as well. So there's a lot of stuff that you gotta deal with and worry about. So you got all those things kind of swirling around. I didn't just jump in. I wish I would have, and now it's kicking myself in the butt. So head over to Tipico, get the Buckeyes. They're still good value, I think. Them and Georgia sitting there. I can't say that'll be the national championship game, but it feels like a pretty strong inkling that at least one of those 2 teams will ultimately be in there. Thank you for the show, guys. Hopefully you celebrated Memorial Day responsibly. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Commemorate our fallen troops. Thank a veteran if you see them out there. And until next time, thank you for this edition of the Bobby Carpenter Show.